Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name's Lateef. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, switch on your notifications, and let's just get started. So this video is essentially about Purito. If you don't know, you're about to know. But essentially, a sunscreen which is advertised by Purito as having an SPF protection of 50 was actually found to have an SPF protection of 19.
It was all a lie.
Correct, 19. And that would be the Centella green level. In fact, I have it in front of me. Centella green level unscented sunscreen. I actually just bought this because of Glow by Ramon. Check him out. I'm still going to blame him for this purchase. And he's got a brilliant video on this as well. But yeah, so it was actually found out to, be measured at SPF 19. And this was actually through, testing in actual labs. So the one thing I really think that is really important to do is understand that there was a lot of criticism and a lot of people are actually rather skeptical about this formulation to begin with. So when you actually look at Purito and like the formulation, they actually use two UV filters. The UV filters that they use is UVINULT A, which is good for absorbing UVA. So again, those are the ones that affect the like lower levels of your skin, and UVINULT T, which is good for UVB, right? So these are part of like your new modern chemical sunscreens, right? And the issue is that there's only two of them. So that's why a lot of people are skeptical. This is not to say that two UV filters is wrong, but more often than not, what you do find is that if people are using two UV filters, especially when you're talking about chemical sunscreens, is that it's usually a UVINULT A alongside TINOSORB S, which actually provides UVA and UVB coverage equally. Right, so just bear that in mind. Then actually after that, they kind of released the concentrations of which they use UVINULT A and UVINULT T, which both of them was under 5%. And again, really skeptical, right? Because if both of them are under 5% and you're saying that this, has an SPF of 50, then ding, ding, ding. It just like the maths is not mathing. You feel me? Like it's like 2 + 2 = 7. It's not making sense, right? So a lot of people are really skeptical, and actually a lot of YouTubers had mentioned this in the past as well as cosmetic scientists, right? So there was always that. So what's kind of happened here is that Coda have gone on their investigative journey and they've actually said, hey, this doesn't make sense. Let's actually get some lab testing done. And what they've done is that the first type of test they've done is called and in vitro testing, and this is essentially when the formulation is tested by itself, so no kind of living organisms are involved in this testing. The thing about this is that this provides a measurement. It's not 100% accurate, it just provides a measurement, and they've done this in a Polish lab, and the result was that, hey, this SPF 50 actually comes out at about like SPF 15.8. Let's just round it up to SPF 16 and give them something since they've lost the 50, right? So that's at SPF 16. The second result, they've then decided to do in vivo testing, which actually involves actual living organisms, like so live people. And I believe they used 10 people to kind of conduct this test on. And the results came back, which are, I guess, more accurate as an SPF 19. So those are two tests in two completely different labs, right? Two different types of testing that still concluded that this is nowhere near this SPF 50 that, is being advertised and marketed at. On top of it, Coda, the investigative journalists that they are, have actually said that they are going to send this to a third lab because, again, they just want to make sure they've got their backs covered on all fronts. What's really important to know, and I think is really brilliant that they mentioned this, is that they actually decanted the bottles, meaning that they didn't send it with like its original packaging. Anything that could have been a bias was removed out of the scenario, and literally it was just not an empty bottle, but like a non-descriptive bottle of a formulation which was tested on, right? So, it's actually highly likely that it is going to be a SPF 1920, and it will be really interesting to see how kind of Purito comes back from this or what they're going to say about this. One thing I will say is that this is not a Korean sunscreen issue. This is not an Asian sunscreen issue. I think a lot of people need to be very careful about the things they're saying, because in some of the comments and on Twitter, Instagram, etc., Reddit, some of xenophobia was shown. I think we need to be really careful here. Studies have actually shown that this is not the first time it's happened, and it's actually happened amongst a lot of Western brands. So Consumer New Zealand, which is, I guess, a focus group which looks at various different products for consumers, have actually identified that a lot of sunscreens have actually failed to meet what they describe. So here's a picture here, which I've just included, but I also put a link because I appreciate the fact that you may not be able to zoom in. And brands such as Banana Bow or Cancer Society have actually failed. And I mean, the Cancer Society is hella mad because Cancer Society is your name, but have actually failed, you know, to deliver or meet the requirements of what they, you know, said that they are. So this is actually, you know, a big issue across the board. One thing I will say to people again is try to look at ingredients as much as possible. The one thing I've been asked a lot from the space of tonight to today is how can the consumer find out if, you know, these sunscreens actually work in the way that they say that they will. And the fact is that you really can't. Unless if you have money to do like testing in labs, then you can only trust the brand, which is really unfortunate because you would hope that, you know, brands would generally be honest. Well, and as we've seen with Purito, that's clearly not the case. And this is why, and I guess it brings me to the topic, that sunscreen formulation is extremely hard. Sunscreen is probably the hardest skincare thing to actually push out because it goes through a massive period of like, I guess, just formulating it, testing it, and it has to go through various different approvals depending on the region. So for example, if you're in the US, it has to go through FDA approval. If you're in Europe, it goes through the European Commission and the various different branches that fall under that are specifically to cosmetics. And I think it's really important to bear in mind the kind of testing that it goes through. So for example, as we mentioned, it goes through like in vitro testing, in vivo testing, and this will be for both UVA, UVB. If you say your sunscreen is waterproof, slap that on there. It's going to go through waterproof testing. If it has any products which potentially can kind of shift the dynamic and it's no longer considered an OTC, over the counter, boom, it's going through testing as well. So bros, keep that all in mind, that these are the kind of, you know, high level checks that are put in place. So unfortunately, if something slips through, it's not that there wasn't a check, it's just, hey, like, we don't know how it slipped through. Which brings me to the point that it'll be so interesting to find out who done the original testing and approvals for Purito, and maybe that can provide more clarity on the situation. While I'm here, a lot of people have been asking me about the Keep Cool Sun Essence SPF because it does use UVINULT A, which is one of the ingredients which is found in the Purito. What I will say is that I can't 100% guarantee, and I'm 100% not going to die on the line for any brand. But the one thing I will say about the Keep Cool Sun Essence formulation is that it also has TINOSORB in it, right? And we've kind of established that TINOSORB is considered to be an ingredient that is used in SPFs to take them to a high standard. It also provides UVA and UVB protection. So just kind of bear that in mind. I think this is really going to push a lot of brands to actually be more transparent in terms of the concentrations in which that they are using their UV filters. And I think, you know, it would be a really good discussion. I think, you know, it is extremely problematic to market something as SPF 50 and then it's actually an SPF 19, especially when people use it for, you know, protection for their skin, for, you know, better lack of a word. A few people have asked me of what I would suggest as an alternative. One thing that I will suggest is the Blythe Honest Sunscreen. You can't see it, and that's because me and my bum ass have not fixed my whole lighting situation, but I'll post a link to it. This actually uses UVINULT A, UVINULT T, and TINOSORB, so it is great coverage. It is unscented and it has like various different fruit extracts and antioxidants in it. Really great product. I've spoken about it quite a few times. That is what I would say is probably, in my opinion, the best alternative right now. Please feel free to kind of find your own, but for me, that's what I would say in this space and time. The one thing that I do really want to stress, guys, is that look, if you're buying stuff like sunscreen, in fact, any skincare product, and I always tell you guys this, like, do not believe at face value the person who's recommending it to you. Go on Google, do your research, understand what these ingredients mean, become like a little scientist, right? Because at the end of the day, this is stuff that you're putting on your face. Like, even if it's me, chief me up, drag me by my chest. Tell me that you want all of the information. Tell me that you want me to explain it better. Because a lot of people are really upset by this, and a lot of people have invested a bit of money in this, and they don't know what to do. In terms of like, if you've already bought it like I have, what you can do is repurpose it. Repurposing is perfect because you know what, at the end of the day, SPF 19 is better than no SPF. So this is going to become a nice hand cream for me because I do use SPF moisturizers on my hands, and because again, they're part of the body and they're exposed. Repurpose it. So this for me, like I said, bro, it's going to become a hand cream. So, do you know what I mean? You don't need to throw away, you don't need to do all of that kind of fake outrage or whatever. You've obviously spent money on it. Keep your money, right? So look, that's everything that I wanted to conclude today. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. And yeah, that's it. Peace out. Continue to use your SPF and enjoy the rest of your day, guys.